Okay, let's unpack this. We all know the standard advice, right? You start feeling that little tickle, maybe a bit of a chill.
Yeah, the usual script is rest, bundle up, maybe pop a pill.
Exactly. Take it easy, suppress the symptoms. But what if that whole approach is actually maybe counterproductive?
Interesting thought.
What if that feeling cold, the shiver itself, isn't a malfunction? What if it's your body saying, hey, do something, move,
Yeah.
like an instruction?
Well, that's pretty much the core of what we're diving into today. It's this really fascinating model called the body heating theory.
And this comes from the work of Lev Neymotin, PhD, of N5 Digital Inc., right?
That's right. It's a physiological perspective that suggests we can, use our own body's heating system as a defense mechanism. It's quite a shift in thinking.
So our mission here is to get a handle on this, understand why temperature and, crucially, timing might be so vital when you first get sick.
Mhm.
We're looking at this idea that controlled exercise early on, creating this sort of targeted internal heat, can actually help fight off viruses, speed things up.
Precisely. It's about boosting the immune response and maybe even directly suppressing the virus itself right when it's most vulnerable. It really zeroes in on that initial battleground.
And the theory suggests there's a very specific, very narrow window for this to work best.
Absolutely critical. That earliest phase, that's the opportunity. Generate heat then, and you might just disrupt the whole infection process before it really takes hold.
So we'll dig into the science, the why, and how.
And then we'll look at the what's. The practical tool they propose for actually doing this, the isotone adaptive resistance device, how you might actually apply this theory.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. Why temperature? Why is that the linchpin here? What's the fundamental idea from, virology and immunology that this theory is built on?
Well, the core concept is that temperature isn't just like a background condition. It's a critical factor, a really active player for both the virus and for our immune system.
An active player. How so?
It's what you might call a reciprocal relationship. Basically, conditions that help the virus multiply tend to hinder our immune response, and the conditions that boost our immune response tend to make things tough for the virus.
Okay, a kind of thermal tug of war.
Exactly, like a zero-sum game played with degrees Celsius.
So let's look at the virus side first. Respiratory viruses, colds, flu, coronaviruses, they like to hang out. What's their ideal environment?
They definitely prefer the cooler spots. Think about where infections often start: the nose, the upper airways, the bronchial tubes.
Right, those areas aren't quite at core body temperature, are they? They're a bit cooler because they're exposed.
Precisely. They might be operating a degree or two, maybe even 3 degrees Celsius, below the core 37 degrees C. And for many of these viruses, that slightly cooler zone, say 33 degrees C to 35 degrees C, is perfect. It's their 5-star hotel for replication.
Okay, so cooler means happier viruses. Now flip that. What about our immune system? How does it react to temperature changes?
It's the complete opposite story. Our immune functions, things like how fast our white blood cells move, how well they engulf pathogens, how quickly we produce antibodies and interferons, which are crucial antiviral signals.
Yeah.
All of that activity intensifies with even a moderate rise in core body temperature. It's like turning up the heat speeds everything up. Immune cells get to the site of infection faster, they communicate better, they're more aggressive.
Wow. So it's really that simple. When the body's cool, viruses do well. When the body warms up, our defenses kick into high gear.
That's the fundamental principle.
Yeah.
And if you accept that, it totally changes how you might look at something like a fever, or even just shivering.
Right. Instead of seeing them as just annoying symptoms to get rid of.
You might see them as the body's own, built-in defense strategy kicking in, an attempt to create that unfavorable thermal environment for the virus and a favorable one for the immune cells. The theory argues we should maybe work with that response, even amplify it, not just shut it down immediately.
But hold on. If a little heat is good, why does mainstream advice usually say rest and often take something to reduce fever? Why suppress it?
That's a really important point. The standard approach is largely focused on comfort, right? Fevers feel awful. And also there's the concern about very high uncontrolled fevers, which can be dangerous, though that's relatively rare.
Okay.
So the conventional wisdom prioritizes symptom relief and avoiding those rare high fever risks. What this theory suggests isn't that all fevers are great, but that the body's initial drive to warm itself up is fundamentally protective.
So by taking medication immediately, we might be getting comfort, but actually undermining our immune system's first best move.
That's the argument. We might be inadvertently helping the virus during those critical first hours by keeping the temperature down. This theory proposes a kind of middle way, Don't rely on passive rest, but use controlled active heating through exercise. You get the temperature benefit without the risks of letting a fever run wild.
Okay, you mentioned timing is critical. You said narrow window. Let's drill down on that. Why is being early so crucial? It's about how viruses multiply, isn't it?
Absolutely. Viral growth isn't steady. It typically follows what's called an S-curve or a sigmoidal curve. And understanding that curve is key to understanding the intervention window.
An S curve.
Yep.
Walk me through the phases. Where's our chance?
Okay, so first you have the lag phase. This is right at the beginning.
Yep.
The virus is just getting established, maybe adapting to the host cells.
Yeah.
Replication is happening, but it's relatively slow, sort of linear. And crucially, the immune system is only just starting to notice something's wrong.
That's the moment.
That's the golden moment, the intervention window. The viral load, the actual number of virus particles, is still relatively small. Small enough, the theory goes, that you can significantly impact it with temperature changes.
And if you miss that window.
Then you hit the steep part of the S-curve,
Yeah.
the exponential phase. This is where things get scary fast. The virus population starts doubling and doubling again very rapidly.
Right.
Symptoms usually intensify dramatically here. And because the sheer number of viruses is exploding, trying to control it with temperature becomes much, much harder. The immune system is now scrambling to catch up against overwhelming numbers.
And eventually, the immune system catches up, leading to the plateau.
Yes, the plateau or decline phase is where the immune response finally gains dominance and the viral load starts to decrease. But you've already gone through the worst of it by then.
So we're really talking about a race against the clock. This body heating idea has to happen in that initial lag phase. How long is that, typically?
The estimate is usually within the first 24 to 36 hours after the infection really begins, often before you even feel truly sick. Maybe just that first little sign.
Wow, so if you wait until day 2 or 3 when you're already feeling lousy and maybe running a fever naturally?
You've likely missed the optimal window where this kind of proactive heating could have had its biggest preventative effect. You're already deep into the exponential phase.
And the theory puts some numbers on this thermal advantage, doesn't it? How much difference can a small temperature increase make?
Yeah, this is where it gets quantitatively interesting. The model suggests that if you think of the viral replication rate, let's call it R, as being inversely related to temperature, so as temperature T goes up, R goes down,
Okay.
then even a modest 1 degree C rise in core body temperature, something achievable through controlled exercise, could potentially reduce that viral replication rate, R, by something like 10 to 15%.
Okay, 10-15% might not sound huge at first glance.
But think about exponential growth. Shaving 10-15% off the replication rate in every cycle buys your immune system precious time. Hours, potentially.
Time for what?
Time for the immune system to ramp up properly, to produce those interferons, get T cells activated, start churning out antibodies. It slows the virus down just enough for our defenses to organize before the viral load becomes overwhelming.
And this ties into the immune response curve itself, right? The sources mention figure 1, showing the immune system usually takes about 7 days, 168 hours, to reach its peak.
Exactly. The idea with early heating is to essentially shift that curve leftward. You're giving the immune system a head start by boosting its performance right at the beginning with that artificial heat.
You get it to peak strength faster.
Potentially, yes. Instead of taking the full 7 days, maybe you reach that point of immune dominance where your defenses are fully mobilized in, say, 4 or 5 days.
Which relates to figure 2, the viral load and symptoms threshold. That threshold is the point where you feel really sick because the virus numbers are so high.
Right. So if you intervene with heat during that initial slow lag phase, the goal is to keep the viral growth curve below that symptom threshold. You manage the infection while the viral burden is still low, letting the immune system clear it without you ever experiencing the full-blown illness. It's about winning the battle quietly before it escalates. Hashtag 1.3 deep thermogenesis versus surface warmth.
Okay, this is a really important point you touched on earlier. Not all heat is the same. When we feel cold, our body shivers. That's involuntary muscle contraction to generate heat, right?
Yep, that's the hypothalamus kicking in, trying to raise core temperature.
But what's our typical reaction when that happens? We feel cold, we shiver.
Instinct. Grab a blanket, put on a sweater, crank up the thermostat. We reach for external warmth.
And according to this theory, what's wrong with that?
Well, 2 things. First, layering up often suppresses the shivering reflex itself. You're telling the body's internal furnace to stop working because you're providing external heat.
Okay.
Second, and more importantly, that external heat primarily warms your skin. It feels comforting, sure, but it doesn't effectively penetrate to raise the temperature in the deep core tissues like inside your chest, your airways, where the virus is actually multiplying. The sources call it a deceptive warmth.
So you feel warm on the outside, but the battlefield inside might still be cool enough for the virus.
That's the concern. You're cozy, but you might not be creating the optimal internal thermal conditions for your immune system.
Which is why the theory emphasizes deep thermogenesis from deliberate muscle activity. Tell me more about that distinction.
Deep thermogenesis is about generating heat from the inside out. When you use large muscle groups actively and intensely, the heat is produced metabolically, right within those deep tissues and organs.
Not just warming the surface.
Exactly. It's a more direct, more uniform way to heat the core. And arguably, it's physiologically safer than just sitting in a really hot sauna or bath, which heats you passively from the outside and can sometimes, lead to dizziness or put stress on the circulatory system. With exercise, your body's own regulatory systems are engaged.
Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty. How does this deep heat actually help, beyond just making it too hot for the virus? What are the specific ways it boosts our immune fight?
There's several layers to it. First, direct impact on the virus. We know many common respiratory viruses literally start to lose their structure, their integrity, their ability to infect cells when the temperature gets above, say, 38 degrees C.
Specific examples.
Rhinoviruses, the common cold viruses, are particularly sensitive. They struggle significantly around 39 degrees C. And research on SARS-CoV-2 showed that its replication rate in vitro dropped by over 50% at typical fever temperatures. So you're actively degrading the enemy.
Okay, weakening the virus. What about strengthening our side?
Heat acts like a catalyst for our immune cells. Higher temperatures make them move faster, so neutrophils and macrophages, the first responders, get to the infection site quicker. It also speeds up the activation of T cells, which are crucial for killing infected cells.
So everyone gets to the fight faster and works better once they're there.
Pretty much. And there's another important factor. Heat shock proteins, or HSPs.
HSPs, what do they do?
They're like cellular mechanics that get produced under stress, including heat stress. In the immune context, they're really important for helping our cells display bits of the virus antigens on their surface.
Making it easier for the immune system to see the enemy.
Yes, exactly. HSPs improve antigen presentation, which helps the immune system mount a more specific and effective targeted attack rather than just a general inflammatory response. They help tailor the counteroffensive.
And then there's the whole circulation aspect, especially the lymphatic system. Movement is key there, right?
Hugely important and often overlooked. Your lymphatic system is like the body's waste removal and immune cell transport network. It clears out debris, dead cells, viral particles, and is how immune cells travel around.
But unlike the blood circulation, it doesn't have a central pump like the heart.
Correct. Lymph flow depends almost entirely on muscle contractions squeezing the lymphatic vessels. Movement is the pump for the lymphatic system.
So if the standard advice is rest, lie still.
You're essentially shutting down your body's primary system for clearing out the infection debris and delivering fresh immune troops to the front line. Whereas resistance-based exercise, the kind that generates deep heat, also strongly stimulates muscle contraction, which powerfully accelerates lymph flow. It keeps the internal highways clear and moving. It reinforces this idea that maybe, just maybe, strategic movement is better than stillness in those early stages.
Okay, so connecting all this science, it sounds less like a brand new discovery and more like tapping into something really ancient, almost primal. Thermogenesis, generating heat, is basic survival, isn't it?
Absolutely fundamental. Think about our evolutionary history. For millennia, survival often depended on dealing with cold environments. Generating internal warmth through physical activity wasn't optional, it was necessary.
Hunting, gathering, building shelter, even just intense shivering.
Exactly. All that muscular effort was essential, not just for staying warm, but likely also tied into keeping the metabolic and immune systems primed and ready. Movement meant warmth, and warmth meant survival and defense.
So we have fever, that's the body's involuntary cytokine-driven response, like IL-1, IL-6 triggering the thermostat chain.
Right, that's the automatic emergency system.
But this body heating theory, using exercise, it's not replacing fever, it's more like intentionally preempting or amplifying that heat response, creating a voluntary, controlled, artificial fever.
That's a good way to put it. You're using the body's own engine, the muscles, to generate that heat proactively and purposefully. And that engine is incredibly powerful.
How powerful?
Muscle contraction accounts for a huge amount of our heat production during exertion. The source material says nearly 80% of thermogenesis comes from muscles when you're physically active.
Hmm.
If you need to raise your core temperature quickly and from the inside, your muscles are the best tool you have.
Which brings us to this idea of an evolutionary mismatch in modern life.
Yes, this is a key concept. Our ancestors had to move to stay warm and likely boost immunity. We, on the other hand, live in climate-controlled boxes. We drive everywhere. We sit at the desks.
We've outsourced temperature regulation to technology.
We have. And the result, the theory suggests, is that our own internal thermoregulatory system gets, well, lazy, understimulated. It doesn't get the regular workouts it evolved to expect.
So when our ancestors felt a chill, the immediate necessary response was intense activity. Move or freeze, move or get overwhelmed by infection.
Right. High stakes.
When we feel a chill, we reach for the thermostat or a sweater. Problem solved.
Yeah.
Externally.
And in doing so, we bypass that ancient hardwired defense loop. The theory proposes that by using deliberate, controlled exercise at the first sign of illness, we're essentially plugging back into that evolutionary program. We're taking control of the shivering reflex, turning a passive response into an active, targeted defense strategy that makes our internal environment better for us and worse for the virus. Okay, so if the theory is solid, if generating early, deep, controlled heat is the goal, then the next question is, how do you actually do that effectively and safely?
Right, you need a practical tool. And that's where the isotone device comes into the picture in Dr. Neymotin's work.
Exactly. It's proposed as the instrument designed specifically to implement the body heating theory.
Tell us about it. It's described as an adaptive resistance fitness device. What does that mean, and how is it different from, say, just lifting weights or using resistance bands? Why is this supposedly better for generating that deep heat?
The key phrase is adaptive resistance. Unlike a fixed weight, which is always the same, or a band, where resistance increases as you stretch it, the isotone is designed to automatically match and resist the force you apply, instantly.
Okay.
And it does this in both directions, push and pull, through a full 360-degree range of motion. This means your muscles are constantly engaged, working intensely against a resistance that's always challenging them throughout the entire movement.
No rest phase within the movement itself.
Pretty much, it forces continuous high-intensity muscle activation, which is incredibly efficient at generating metabolic heat quickly. More work done per unit of time equals more heat.
And speed is vital because of that narrow 24 or 36-hour window we talked about. How fast can this device supposedly get your core temperature up?
This is the crucial performance claim. The research associated with this suggests that using the isotone intensely allows a user to achieve that target core temperature elevation somewhere between 0.5 degrees C and 1.5 degrees C within just 3 to 5 minutes.
3 to 5 minutes, that's fast.
Very fast. Fast enough to potentially make a difference in that critical early lag phase of viral replication.
Yeah.
It delivers that thermal boost needed to nudge the internal environment just enough.
That quick targeted heating is definitely interesting. What other advantages does this specific device design offer for this purpose?
Well, safety and accessibility are big ones. Because the resistance adapts to you, you're always in control of the intensity.
Yeah.
It's hard to, accidentally overdo it in the same way you might with a fixed heavyweight. This helps prevent overheating or injury.
Makes sense.
And then there's portability. It's designed to be compact, small enough to keep at your desk, take on a trip, use practically anywhere.
So you could actually use it immediately when you feel that first symptom, wherever you are.
That's the idea. That portability is what makes implementing this strategy within that tight time frame realistic for most people. You don't need a gym or special setup.
And it has other potential uses too, doesn't it? Not just for this immune boosting idea.
Right. It's fundamentally a fitness and physical therapy tool. The resistance is good for strength and rehab.
Yeah.
And an interesting side effect mentioned is that some of the metallic parts warm up a bit during use, which could potentially enhance, self-massage effects afterwards, helping with blood flow in the muscles you just worked.
Okay, we keep coming back to this. Deep core heat, not just surface warmth. Let's really drive this point home. Why are those passive methods, blankets, baths, saunas, considered less effective, according to this theory? Can we use the comparison data?
Yeah, the core issue with passive heating is heat transfer physics. Blankets, hot water, sauna, air. They warm you from the outside in.
Right.
While that feels good, the heat has trouble penetrating deeply and quickly enough to significantly raise the temperature right down in the core tissues, like the lungs and airways, where the virus might be setting up shop.
So the goal isn't just feeling warm, it's forcing your body to generate the heat metabolically from within those deep muscle tissues.
Precisely. Active thermogenesis, using your muscles, creates heat inside the body, close to the vital organs. The theory argues this is just much more physiologically efficient and targeted for impacting the internal environment where it matters most.
The sources include a comparison table. Let's walk through that. How does a simple blanket stack up against something like isotone exercise in terms of heat depth?
Okay, so if you look at blankets or layers of clothing, the heat depth is rated as low. It really only affects the skin and maybe the fat layer just beneath it. Portability is obviously high, but the impact on core temperature is minimal. That's the deceptive warmth again.
Right. What about things that feel much hotter, like saunas or hot baths?
They offer moderate depth. They can certainly raise your overall body temperature significantly, but they come with caveats. There's a moderate safety concern, a risk of dizziness, fainting, cardiovascular stress if you overdo it or have certain conditions. And crucially, portability is low. You can't jump in a sauna the minute you feel a tickle at your office desk.
And that's the key difference with the proposed isotone exercise.
Exactly. The table rates it as high depth, core, because the heat is generated internally by major muscle groups. Safety is considered adjustable safe because you control the intensity based on your effort. And portability is very high.
So it hits all the requirements: deep heat, safety, and the ability to use it immediately, anywhere.
That's the argument. It aims to bridge the gap between the physiological need for deep heat and the practical need for immediate, accessible application within that critical early window. Hashtag 2.3, their early response routine, anti-cold protocol.
Okay, let's make this super practical. Someone's listening, they buy into the theory, maybe they even have the device. What exactly do they do? What's this anti-cold protocol?
First and foremost, initiation timing. I've said it before, but it bears repeating. Start immediately. First sign. That little throat scratch, the unexplained chills, sudden fatigue, don't wait.
Okay, timing is step 0. What's the actual exercise routine?
The protocol described involves doing 3 rounds of a specific set of exercises. And the key here is intensity. You need to perform them at near maximum effort to generate that heat quickly. We're talking about 30 to 40 repetitions for each exercise in the cycle.
High intensity bursts. Got it. Let's break down the specific exercises mentioned. Why these movements? First, the elbow squeeze.
Okay, the elbow squeeze involves pushing and pulling the device at chest level. The goal seems to be rapid upper body circulation, engaging the chest, shoulders, upper back muscles to quickly get blood flowing in the torso, kind of jump-starting the system.
Okay, next, the front press.
This involves pushing horizontally, again focusing on the upper body, engaging the chest and shoulders, but also bringing in core stabilization, more heat generation in the torso.
Then there's a high press, moving overhead.
Yeah, any movement against resistance overhead forces the cardiovascular system to work harder. It increases the heart rate, boosts systemic circulation, helps distribute that generated heat more widely through the core.
And finally, the big one, the iso squat front back. Sounds like a full body effort.
It absolutely is. This engages the largest muscle groups, glutes, quads, hamstrings. When you work these big muscles intensely, that's where you get the most significant metabolic heat production. This is likely the core thermal engine of the whole routine. The sequence seems designed to hit multiple large muscle groups rapidly to maximize that quick temperature spike.
Makes sense. So 3 rounds of these 4 exercises, high intensity, 30, 40 reps each. How often do you do this? Just once?
No, definitely not just once. The idea is, yes, a couple of important points. Rest briefly between the rounds. Stay hydrated, preferably with water that has some electrolytes, because you will sweat. And interestingly, the advice is to avoid wearing heavy clothing while doing the exercises.
Avoid heavy clothing. That feels counterintuitive if you're trying to get warm.
Right, but remember the goal. Deep internal heat generation, not just trapping surface heat. Heavy clothes would trap sweat and heat at the skin, potentially leading to overheating and inhibiting the body's natural ability to regulate and distribute the core heat effectively. You want the body to generate the heat from within and then manage it properly through its own systems, like sweating.
So the main focus is that immediate response to the first symptom. But the idea extends beyond just fighting off an acute infection, right? It's also about prevention.
Exactly. The concept of using this kind of exercise for preventive conditioning, building up what you might call thermal resilience.
How would that work?
By regularly engaging in short bursts of this deep heat-generating exercise, the theory suggests you can sort of train your immune system, keep it more alert. It might also help stabilize vascular tone, making the lining of your airways, your mucosa, inherently less welcoming to viruses trying to set up shop. You're kind of raising your baseline readiness.
What would a daily preventative routine look like? Does it have to be intense?
The suggestion is actually quite manageable. Maybe 5 short 4-minute bursts spread throughout the day. Just enough to get the circulation going, generate a little internal warmth, and keep the system active.
4 minutes, 5 times a day, that seems doable.
Especially important, perhaps, during colder months, or for people who work in consistently cold environments, think refrigerated warehouses or overly air-conditioned offices. Those conditions constantly cool the upper airways, potentially creating that ideal viral breeding ground. Regular thermal workouts might counteract that.
And the benefits of this kind of controlled heat and circulation boost aren't limited just to fighting viruses, are they?
Not at all. The underlying principles improve circulation, localized heat, muscle activation, have broader applications.
Such as?
Well, think about muscle cramps, the combination of targeted resistance exercise, the resulting heat, and maybe even the massage effect could help reset those malfunctioning neuromuscular signals that cause cramps.
Okay.
For therapeutic massage or injury recovery, enhancing blood flow to an area through active resistance and warmth can speed up the healing process, clear out waste products faster.
And what about for people stuck in sedentary situations, like long flights?
That's a big one. Deep vein thrombosis, blood clots, are a real risk during long periods of inactivity. Using a portable device like this to periodically contract leg muscles, stimulate blood flow, and generate a bit of heat could be a valuable preventative measure against clots.
So the overall idea is that harnessing your body's ability to generate heat through muscle work isn't just an anti-cold trick. It's tapping into a fundamental mechanism for maintaining general health, mobility, and recovery.
Precisely. It positions controlled, active thermogenesis as a versatile tool for supporting vitality across many different situations, essentially reclaiming an ancient survival strategy for modern well-being. Hashtag Aushi Himmerbro. So wrapping this all up, what the body heating theory really highlights is this fundamental biological symmetry, isn't it? Viruses, especially the respiratory ones, falter as things warm up. Our immune system, conversely, gets stronger and faster with a bit of heat.
Like a seesaw.
Exactly. And Dr. Neymotin's work suggests that the difference between shaking something off quickly and getting really sick might hinge on how fast and effectively we can tip that seesaw in our favor right at the very beginning.
It really does challenge that automatic instinct to just lie down and wait it out when you feel that first symptom.
It reframes purposeful physical activity not just as exercise for fitness, but as a direct, controllable extension of our body's own ancient defense system. Remember that simple line. When the body cools, viruses thrive. When it warms internally, our vitality gets the upper hand.
So for you listening, maybe the biggest takeaway is this. That initial signal, the shiver, the scratchy throat. Maybe it's not a signal to retreat.
Perhaps it's a call to action. Instead of passive rest and suppression, the alternative proposed is active, controlled heat generation, turning that involuntary shiver into a deliberate, powerful defense.
You've now got this idea that movement itself can be therapeutic, a sort of self-generated, controllable fever you can deploy immediately.
Right.
So the next time you feel that first inkling of being unwell, that little chill, what's your move going to be? Will it be the default blankets and stillness?
Or will you try harnessing your own internal furnace, generating that deep heat from within?
It reframes the choice, doesn't it? It's not about enduring discomfort. It's about actively choosing defense, something to really think about.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into temperature, immunity, and maybe a new way to think about staying well.
We really appreciate you tuning in, and we hope you'll join us for the next deep dive.